All right, Kenman here, and today we have an interesting unboxing, a little different, kind of a change up, but I would say fitting for the channel. Let's not waste any time and get right in. Unknown box, and we have a bag on the floor. What is the unknown box from? What is fitting? What is different? Shut up, Kenman. Open the box. Show us what's inside. Another box. Gin. Build your own knife. That kind of gives it away right there. I'd say this is our first gin knife on the channel, but in reality it isn't. One of the shorts I did back at the very beginning was of a gin like trainer knife where the blade is actually made out of G10. So it's not a real sharp blade, but it's kind of a learn how the knife parts work. Kind of a good gift for teaching someone how they are and what they do without having an actual blade. In this case, we might have an actual blade. Dan, you look at that scratch on the box. All right, here we go. Has anyone picked one of these up? I was just doing my normal perusing the internet, looking for some interesting things. Got a couple of springs in there. Instruction packet. I'll set that right there. All right, bag 1, bag 2, bag 3, 4, 5 and a half. And a box on the floor. All right. There it is. So what do we get? What is going on? Very cool. Looks like there is a cloth in this one right here. We have lubricating knife joints, reduces friction, do not drink. A little knife oil with a little applicator tip in that bag. We have a couple of springs. We have a large assortment of hardware, button, pivot, bearings, more springs, several sets of springs. All right, looks like the frame, or the liners actually, that will go on the inside of the scales, which are right there. And we got a blade, short little stubby blade, caution sharp edge. Look at all of this stuff, huh? Pretty cool. Instructions. Got our scales, our liners, the blade, pocket clip, your knife, oil, cloth, a T8 and a T6 screwdriver. Oh, it's got a captive pivot with a D-shaped pivot hole, so you only need a screw or a tool for the one side. It is a button lock, so there is a button. And we have step-by-step instructions on how to put this bad boy together. Maintenance guide. Congratulations, you built your entire... oh, that's the last page. Once you've completed that is when you get to successfully read the congratulations. And then how to maintain it. So this is kind of fun. Taken a lot of knives apart and done some custom work to them. So this one's all disassembled, ready for some customization. What I can tell you right off the bat is some jade scales right here. So we might as well do a die project. Let's skip right ahead, leave all this right where it is, go to the kitchen and get to work. Ugh. Just like that, we're here doing a die project. How did this happen? Die project 58? I thought we were doing an unboxing here. All right, so I've got them all on these hooks ready to go. I've got the die heated up. I'm going to swish them around, make sure there's no air bubbles, then we'll talk for a second. Oh, got some on my thumb. All right, we are in and down. Got to rinse that off my thumb right away, otherwise that spot, you can kind of see that yellow stain. It sat there for a few seconds while I was swishing around and it already started doing its work. trying to wipe it off as best I can. And wipe off these little spots here. Dye takes a while on something you want to dye, but when it's something you don't want to dye, it goes very fast. See that little line on my thumb? That'll probably be there for a couple days now, which is fine. But what we've got is some RIT dye. It's a basic dye that you would use for making like tie-dyed shirts or dyeing fabric. And I've added about 2 or 3 ounces of dye to about 24 ounces of water. I'm heating it a little bit too much. Heating it on the stove. You want it just under boiling. Well, you can have it boiling, but it's not necessary. I like to have it just under boiling. Don't want it too hot. And that's just enough. The heat activates the dye, makes it do its thing. And then you put them in, and like I remove those air bubbles, because if there was an air bubble on an area that's underneath, that air bubble is preventing dye from hitting that spot, so that'll give uneven distribution of the dye. And I want a nice even color here. Wow, it's crazy how yellow this looks right now. This is actually an orange. I believe this is, where did I put the jar? Sunshine Orange. I've got it in this jar right here. That's the nice thing about dye. If you put it in a container after you cool it off when you're done, you can save it and reuse it over and over. So it's a cheap investment that can be used for years and years. $3 for some dye. It's great. So we've got that in there. We got to let it sit for several minutes. This is orange, depending on the heat, depending on the material, depending on the color. It could be 1 minute, it could be 10 minutes. The hotter it is, well, up to a certain point. It doesn't really need to be up above boiling. From where it is now to above boiling, it'll take about the same amount of time. But if it was just like warm, like you put it in the microwave and just had it warm, it would take longer than being closer to the boiling point. I've had some knives, not this one in particular, but this one here in red. Red often goes much quicker. I've had some knives that I dyed for less than basically 1 minute under the dye, and it was a dark red. This one was probably 2 or 3 minutes, I believe. You can go back. I have a dye project list and watch all of them. This is technically number 58. Can you believe we've done that many? Got a blue one right here. Lots of different colors that you can get that are available. Here I even did a fade, little yellow to an orange to a red kind of a color. Let's take a look at what we've got so far. Wow, very yellow. Sunshine Orange is giving me some crazy yellows here. I am going to go ahead and speed this video up for a little bit, let these sit, because it could be 5-10 minutes or so. We're not doing a fade or anything, so otherwise you're just going to listen to me ramble on. So we're going to do a little time lapse here and see what it looks like after a few minutes. Okay, after an excessive amount of time, let's see. I think we're going to be orange enough. I'm going to turn off the heat. Putting it in this water is completely neutralizing the dye. You can take it off these hooks. Give them a good rinse. If there's any spots or chunks or anything on there, that can continue to change the color, although this changed so slow. I'm not too worried about it getting too much, but we just still want to clean them off really well. Dab them dry on this dirty towel. I got this darker one. We can kind of see the color a little bit better. There we are. We got them nice and orange. Now let's get back to the table and build this thing. Okay, we are back at the table. I have the scales dyed a nice orange. We have our gin Rhyno knife kit all ready to go. Let's put it together. I am going to take their mini tools and kind of put them aside. I have some bigger ones with better torque, so I'm going to skip those for now. We have the parts list, and then it has the instructions. It seems like it's a fairly straightforward build. I'll just set those down here, and we will get to it. Okay, so I'll kind of follow what they say. We'll see what happens here. So this has a little D pivot line across the bottom. We're going to put that in there. And then this fits just into there, that direction only. Boom, just like that. All right. It is saying, actually, to put these screws in now. So I'm going to go ahead and try that. Kind of rotate this barrel on there a little bit quick. Also says don't tighten them down all the way, which makes sense because if you do, and these are really tight, you want this kind of a little loose, because then when you try to click it all together, they have a little bit of play, and then you can kind of click it into position. If you cranked one side down tight right away, it might be more difficult to slide it on there just perfect. So having them a little bit loose is nice, so they've got just that little bit of drop, and I'm going to keep dropping that through there. Make sure you hold that captive pivot in place. Okay, I'm going to set this down. Next step, we've got this. We can put the stop pin, that little hole right there. They are saying add, because the button sits in this little groove right here. So they're saying put it in that groove and then lay the whole thing down together. Although it needs to go there so that the all right, we've got that. Get that spring out of my way. Oh, I missed. Oh no, I didn't. I got it. That's on there. Okay, so then we'll put the other bearing on this side right here. Looking good, fairly simple. Let's try to click this in. See those little clicks? Those are the things where if those were tight, it might not click very easily. That will stay. Put the spring, I usually do it the other way and build from the other side down. I don't know if this will work better or not. We'll find out. Got that spring. I'm going to make sure it sits right in that little hole there. And then try to click this into position, which it looks like it has. So I'm going to drop this pivot in here and screw it down, but not fully. Sometimes I don't care for the magnet. Some people are like, oh, you have to have a magnetic bits sometimes drive me nuts. It kind of counteracts if you know what you're doing, you can kind of get it where it needs to be without the magnet. Comment below, you prefer magnets in them or not? All right, so let's crank that so it can't move. And then before I crank everything else down, let's test this blade. Seems solid. That seems to be correct. All right, so we can put these two screws on this side. I am actually going to leave the clip off initially here. A lot of these smaller knives, I take the clip off. Is that spinning the other side? Feels like it is. Yeah, it was. I kind of enjoy no clips on the smaller knives because it fits in the fifth pocket a little bit better, and then you don't really need, if you're using it as a small fifth pocket knife, you don't really need that clip. You can just kind of slip it in there or put it in a slip. What do you prefer with your smaller knives? All right, so you want to make sure the centering with the blade is all good and correct. So I'm going to make sure that the pivot is tight, not so tight that I won't be able to loosen it, but tight. And then we'll go back and tighten everything else down. If you don't get that blade centered, then you can kind of loosen everything up and make some adjustments and kind of get it centered. If you bought a knife and it was kind of cheap and the blade was never centered, then you might struggle with that a bit. But if you are kind of doing some custom mods to a knife and it was centered when you got it, then you should be able to get it back to center. This one was never together, so we don't know, but still do the same kind of techniques to make sure. All right. When you have the blade open, you want to make sure there's no play. If there's any play in it, then you want to tighten it down. And if it's really stiff, then you can loosen it up a little bit. Might need to loosen that up. Button seems to work. Flicks out. Blade's a little loose now. I'm going to just tighten that down just a little bit more. Make sure the blade is solid. I didn't put any oil in there, so that's probably something that needs to be done. All right. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. All right. Also, it has a thumb stud that you can put in that hole. I'm going to also leave that off. You know me, I prefer a nice flicking hole. We can maybe put the thumb stud in and try it at some point. But for now, I'm going to go with it like this. Everything feels solid. I am going to get, it came with some oil. I've got a little KPL right here as well. So we're going to drop. I'll drop in there. And then we will go right there on that button. Just a couple little drops. Work it in a little bit. Oh yeah. There you go. That's what we were looking for. Just was a little bit dry in there, Kenman. Properly lubricate your tools. KPL original, this is some great stuff. Okay, we are there. We have done it. We have the Gin Rhyno knife kit. Let's take a look. So, of course, we took the jade and made it orange because we got to make it our own on the Kenman channel here. Why am I struggling? I am not sure. There we go. Button lock. I don't remember. Oh, there it says right there. 9CR 18 MOV. So not a bad blade steel for this smaller knife. Got a good little feel, little harpoon right on that edge there. Need a little shorter bit of a finger. We've got some jimps for days. Button. Once we work this in, feels like it's pretty nice. I'm kind of struggling with this flick out. I'm not sure why. Can roll it out with the thumb. We got the front flipper. That seems to work really well. That is a large front flipper. You could almost do it from the back. Oh yeah. That is like a top flipper. Struggling a little bit here. I do have extremely large hands. This thing fits behind my hand real easily. All right, so this is an inexpensive little kit, little knife to check out. It's got a good feel. I like that choke up spot is really large. You can get in there. You almost get a 4-finger grip. Not too bad. Blade feels solid, but if it's not, I can just go in there and tighten that up a little bit, loosen it. I'm going to need to make some adjustments here. Flick out works. Thumb. It's hard to thumb out, but you can kind of roll it out. Boom, there's that flick. It's kind of break this thing in, get used to it. Front flipper does work really well. I like the feel of this. Okay, let's put her next to a pyrite quick here. It's definitely a smaller knife. You can see a good inch or so smaller on the blade and the handle. Might as well grab the mini pyrite. Give it a little comparison on that. So mini pyrite, it's about the same size. So if you're looking For a comparison here, that mini pyrite is literally almost the same, a little bit narrower this way, but they're both button locks. The mini pyrite has some great action. This is an excellent knife. If you're just looking for one of these, you don't really care for a kit, you just want one that's going to work, do a good job for you, not be issues with opening and closing, just being a solid, good knife. CJRB pyrite is great. The mini pyrite is a good smaller size for those little fifth pocket adventures. This gin, I don't know, I'm going to test it out. I got the mini knife shootout coming up, stage 2 of testing. This will be part of it. It's a good price for, like I said, cheap price. We'll see how it holds up against the expensive ones. Anybody have one of these? Jin's got quite a few starter type kits and some budget knives. If you're interested, you go check them out. This one was kind of fun, just as that little kit. We, of course, made a KDK custom as well. What do we think of the final product here? Stay sharp. We'll see you soon.